Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Classroom Matters with me, your host, Christy Houle. And today I am more than delighted to have our guest on the show. Tabatha Rosproy is a 10-year veteran of education and, I'm excited to say, the first early childhood educator to be named National Teacher of the Year. Tabatha currently teaches preschool for the Winfield Early Learning Center in Winfield, Kansas. And as the COVID-19 pandemic forced the closure of school buildings across the country, as we've all been living through, Tabatha served as a co-chair of the Educator task force that actually helped compile Kansas's continuous learning guidance. This and many other accomplishments have led Tabatha to be a role model for all teachers around the nation as they struggle to teach in uncharted waters. Tabatha, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, this is so exciting. And as Tabatha and I were talking earlier, I mentioned to her that a lot of you listening are early childhood educators, and a lot of folks actually that are listening have been Missouri Teacher of the Year or Illinois Teacher of the Year. So I know that this is something that is an exciting thing for you and a great accomplishment. And so, Tabatha, I would love just to start by letting everyone know a little bit about your background and your journey into teaching.
Sure. Well, first of all, I love the Illinois Teacher of the Year and the Missouri Teacher of the Year this year. Melissa, Eric, both incredible people. So shout out to everybody who's listening. And my background is really for 10 years, I've been teaching preschool. I was so fortunate to get the job that I really wanted right outside of college. And I began working for Head Start in Salina, Kansas, and got an incredible foundation there. You know, I always like to say that just like Head Start is an incredible start for kids, it was an amazing start for me as well as an educator. I love that program and all they invest in students and families. But life did lead me back to Winfield, Kansas, where I went to college, and it's about 30 minutes from where I grew up. And I began working for the public school system here and the Special Services Cooperative. And after about 4 years here, we decided to open up a program inside of a local nursing home. And so that's where I currently teach, in a public school classroom housed inside of Cumbernauld Village. And we have our 4-year-olds when it's not the pandemic. This year we are back in the Early Learning Center because of the outbreak of COVID-19 and keeping everybody safe. But when it is not pandemic times, that's where we are, and we're excited to get back there. And we have volunteers who live at the nursing home who are in our classroom every day, and we are out doing things with them too. I teach a full-day program for 4-year-olds, and that's one of the really incredible things about our community is in Winfield and the county, actually now, we fully fund pre-K for any 4-year-old. So regardless of income or ability, you can come to school for free. And so that's my world right now, and I have seen it benefit my students for years after they leave our program. We collaborate with kindergarten teachers and beyond, and talk about all the incredible things that preschool programming can do for students. And so my goal is to get universal pre-K everywhere. That's my dream.
Wow. So you are actually housed, but I want to get to the Teacher of the Year title, but before that, so you're housed inside a nursing home.
Yes. Yep.
Tell me tell me and the listeners, because I'm really intrigued by this, and what a typical day pre-pandemic would look like being in that type of a setting. Are there certain things that you do in conjunction with the nursing home, or are you just sharing a facility? Like, walk us through a normal day in that facility.
So we have 6 planned contact times a day with the residents there, and we call them lovingly our grandmas and grandpas. I have about 40 regular volunteers that I help manage with the liaison who works for Cumbernauld Village, who they employ, and her job is to organize the volunteers, go and get them when it's time, and help them into the classroom. And she's also a certified CNA. And so that really helps us with safety, because that's not something that we could be responsible for. It's really liability issues for the nursing home too. So they make sure that we're covered in all of those ways too. And we have a great relationship with Cumbernauld Village. So they are in our classroom really the whole day, except for when we're napping and except for meal times. That they're usually eating their meals at the same time we are. And the day starts out with our kids checking in the classroom, and then we go right out into the common areas where grandmas and grandpas are eating or congregating, because it's the beginning of the day. We do greetings with them and songs and high fives, have conversations and hellos in every public space that they have. We come back into our classroom and have our large group time. And then we have some volunteers, about 4 or 5, come into the classroom for 45 minutes at that time. And they read with all of my kids one-on-one as we circulate through our small groups. So this enables me not only to work with smaller groups of children because we have extra adults in the room, which we all know is best practice, right? In small groups, smaller numbers, but also my kids are getting read to one-on-one every single day. I can't guarantee that's happening outside of my classroom, but I know that it's happening in my classroom, and I couldn't do that before on my own. There just weren't enough people to go around to make sure every kid was read multiple books every single day. And so that has done wonders, not only for the relationships with my students and the residents there, but also for their literacy scores, right, on our MTSS group testing.
Mm-hmm.
And then, we have lunch and nap time, usually outside time too. And they're with us really the whole morning through our social emotional lessons, through our playtime, through outdoors. We do things like go fishing and stomp in the puddles. They have a little pond there and a little creek. They play with us on the playground. We go on walks. It's just a really beautiful neighborhood that the retirement village is located in. And then in the afternoons, there's our specials time. And that's when we do things outside of our classroom together with the grandmas and grandpas, like the zoo might come and visit. We go to the library and they read to us, and they have a special section for us in their library. We do things like play bingo every Wednesday. We go and visit the rooms of people who are more room bound and maybe don't get out as much. And just bring cheer to them and hear their stories. We do things like historic show and tell is what we call it. And the grandmas and grandpas bring in items from their childhood and tell us stories. We're involved in everything we can be in the nursing home, and they're involved in everything that they can be in our classroom. It is absolutely a part of the fabric of our classroom to have our grandmas and grandpas there.
Mm-hmm. So, wow, I mean, this is such an amazing concept. And I know that some of my people that are listening are thinking, I would love to go visit and
Yes.
see what that's all about. And also, I was just jotting down some questions as you were talking because I'm so intrigued by this. So, do you accept visits from other schools to come in if they say, hey, we're really interested in starting this ourselves in our own public school environment setting? Do you allow that to happen?
Absolutely, we do. And then a lot of people who come will stay in the morning. And then during my plan time, we'll meet together. And I might invite my superintendent, my principal, the director of Cumbernauld to answer any questions that we can about all the red tape and the way our funding works and things like that. So, yes, we definitely welcome that.
Wow. And it really sounds like in this sort of an educational environment, you are really reaching the whole child. You're teaching in a lot of natural environments and really reaching the whole child and not just, paper, pencil, academic and social emotional amongst their own age group, but also reaching out into just what the world is around them. And so, wow, what a great learning experience for these children. Now, is it hard for parents to get into this program, or is there a waiting list, or is it just open to first come, first serve?
There is a waiting list. We have, it's a lottery. Basically, that was the only fair way we could figure out how
Yeah.
to do it. It's
Yeah.
literally names drawn out of a hat, which I have nothing to do with, thankfully, because my boss and
Hmm.
the superintendent, they didn't want me to have to answer because it's hard, when you want your kid in this incredible opportunity. Our hope is to expand it into the other nursing homes in our town. And it's a full day, which is really great for families. It was established originally because we had this thing called the Early Childhood Readiness Coalition, where community stakeholders and teachers were involved with what do we need in our community? Like, we're great at serving our 4-year-olds, our 3-year-olds, but what else can we do to make that better? We're really invested in early childhood here. And a lot of families cited full day opportunities being barriers to their success. So that's what we hoped to create out of this, in addition to our 2 Head Start full day programs.
Hmm.
And so we did. And yeah, it's a lottery. I would say we get around 50 applicants every year, and we can only pick 16. And so that's tricky.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that the nursing home residents get as much, if not more, out of the experience as the children do.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. And if you want to see from their point of view what they get out of it, go to YouTube, search Cumbernauld Little Vikes. And there is a video that was made a couple of years ago by a local high school senior for us that we were just planning to show at conferences we attended, right? And it sort of blew up as I became National Teacher of the Year. But it's beautiful. It's about 5 minutes, totally worth the time to watch. And they really state how much purpose and how much joy they get out of this experience. And the nursing home reports fewer cases and less severe depression in their residents, more activity, more interest in the happenings, just more exercise and being out and about. It is truly a win-win for both populations.
Yeah, and what a great opportunity for you as a young educator to be part of such a great experience. So I mean, I think that's just amazing. And so I want to switch gears a little bit. So National
Mhm.
Teacher of the Year. It's kind of a big deal and the first early childhood National Teacher of the Year. So tell us a little bit about how that came to be. Like, were
Mhm.
you really surprised? Were you in your room? Like, I'm just trying to picture you like just busily working and all this group comes in and says, "Oh, congratulations." Or did you kind of know ahead of time that you were sort of in the running for this?
Well, I knew that my district nominated me originally to be Kansas Teacher of the Year, which went through, the regional process. And then after I was selected as a regional finalist, moved on to state. I was totally surprised to be named Kansas Teacher of the Year. That was in the end of November 2019. So we're just going on a year there.
Mhm.
And the other seven finalists, they couldn't have gone wrong. Anyone that was picked
Mhm.
for that. And about 2 weeks later, I was sitting in my classroom, and part of the process for applying for Kansas Teacher of the Year, there's written essays and resumes and letters of recommendation. There's also videotapes of you teaching and giving a keynote and things like that that the judges look at. And part of that is also sending in an application for National Teacher of the Year. So I had just been named in the end of November. And about 2 weeks later, I get a phone call from Washington, D.C., and I did not answer because I thought it was a political call, right? Like I'm getting those frequently. I just, muted it.
Yes.
I was at work, so I was like, I'll figure this out later. But then I got a direct
Spam.
call, yeah, and then a text. I got a text message, and Teresa, who was helping with the program at the time, texted me and said, "Hi, this is Teresa from CCSSO, which is the Council of Chief State School Officers, who awards this honor every year. And we have some exciting news for you. You might know what it's about. Please call me back." And I had no idea. I had just booked my plane ticket for California in the spring when we get together with all the state teachers of the year. And I thought maybe I was being upgraded to first class or something. Like I thought maybe it was,
Mhm.
something real thrilling like that. And so when I called her back, she said, "Are you sitting down?" And I wasn't. So I sat down. She said, "You've been named a finalist, one of the top 4 in the nation for National Teacher of the Year." And I barely remember what she said after that. I was in such shock. She gave me the opportunity to say no because it's a big commitment, and my school district would have to make this commitment, which they knew when I applied. And so obviously I said yes, and that led to the other finalist and I, who were all secondary teachers, actually incredible, wonderful, amazing secondary teachers, flying out to Washington, D.C., where we were in front of about 17 judges from varying educational organizations across the country. We each gave a 10-minute keynote. We did mock press interviews. We did some real press interviews with like Politico and Ed Week. And we also had to do interviews like sort of round table style in different rooms with 3 or 4 judges at a time, where they asked us different questions. And we knew that we would find out pretty soon after we left. And again, there could have been no wrong decision made, all
Mhm.
very strong educators. The next day, I was in my car after I just had breakfast. I just flown home the night before, and I was headed to a university here in Kansas to to present with my Kansas Teacher of the Year team. And I got a phone call from Washington, D.C. And this time I did not hang up. I did not push end. And it was Teresa again. And she said, "You may know what this is about. Are you sitting down?" And I was. And then she told me that I had been named National Teacher of the Year. And I was all by myself. And then she said, "You can't tell anyone." Because this was the like end of February when this
Mhm.
happened. And the announcement wasn't slated to be until April. And it really didn't end up happening until May because of the pandemic.
Mhm.
And so I was not allowed to tell anyone. It was just the hardest thing to sit on. And they have an incredible partnership with CBS and being able to announce that, and, a press plan and everything for a reason. And I was allowed to tell people in my immediate family. And
Mhm.
but it was really hard to sit on for that long. But it was such a joyous moment. And I'm still in shock. Every day I wake up and wonder if this is real.
Wow.
Mhm.
Well, I have no doubts just based on what I've read about you and the things that I've, seen that you are an absolute perfect pick for this. And, it's amazing and I'm so happy that you went through all of that in your story about how that process is because this is really quite a political uh win.
Mhm.
It's your throne. I'm assuming, and that's why they take you through all those things. It's not as if you are just continue on teaching, and I mean, you do continue on teaching, but there's so
Mhm.
many other things involved. Like you were talking about, you're probably flying around the country. You're doing a lot of
Mhm.
speaking engagements. You are doing a lot of keynote presentations at conferences and press releases and all these things. And so, I'm sure that they have to make sure that the person is also able and capable
Yes.
of carrying themselves in a manner that is appropriate for all of those outlets. So it sounds like there's a lot of things that you have to be able to do in order to even hold the title of National Teacher of the Year. So congratulations, that's quite an amazing accomplishment, and really only being 10 years in.
I know.
So I mean that. I mean, is it a lot of pressure? Do you feel like, okay, this is great, but wow, this is a lot of pressure because now everybody's watching you?
Oh, yes. Yeah. My husband often used to joke already because we live in a town of about 12,000 people and people just know who I am, right?
Sure.
They did. And he is so introverted. He's like, I don't want to go to the grocery store with you anymore because now people know me and they see me. My town put up these two billboards outside of the entrances in
Aw.
town, which is like incredibly sweet. But our, anonymity has gone down to zero. Like everybody knows where I live. A local sign maker put a sign in my yard the day of the announcement. Honk, the National Teacher of the Year lives here. And I mean, just it's hilarious and sweet, and I enjoy it so much. But my husband, on the other hand, does not. But there's a lot of pressure, not only with what I say and do, but with what I post on social media, my opinions about things. As National Teacher of the Year, it's not really appropriate for me to take um any endorsements or saying as National Teacher of the Year I think you should vote for this person, but I obviously still have my personal political opinions, and so it's just a balance, right? There is a ton of pressure, and especially in 2020 with the pandemic, with this huge historic election, I mean, there is a lot to balance.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you're doing a great job doing it, and I have no doubt that you'll continue to do that. And so, let's talk a little bit about not only the pandemic, because okay, so not only were you named the first Early Childhood National Teacher of the Year, but you were also named the first Early Childhood National Teacher of the Year during a pandemic. So, which I'm in the education world, so I have a lot of friends that are teachers, and I have 3 children that are in school at all different grade levels. So, we've all been dealing with this, but what are some of the challenges that you think are really have been some of the hardest things to get through when dealing with early childhood children? 4-year-olds are not going to just jump on a Zoom call as easily as my 17-year-old is going to, or my 12-year-old is going to. So, talk to us a little bit about what that has looked like during a pandemic in early childhood.
Really, early childhood educators have had to turn from direct instruction to their students to really family coaching. That has been a huge piece of remote learning for us in the pre-K and early childhood world. We have had to really use some of those skills and lend our knowledge of developmentally appropriate practice in a loving way to the families and caregivers who are helping these kids learn at home. We're doing things like helping them set up boundaries and motivation for their kids. How do they set up a space that's conducive for learning and let them understand what these, developmentally appropriate practices are? Because, they might have older children that they can see performing these tasks without any trouble, but then you try to get a 4-year-old, like you said, in front of a Zoom for 20 minutes, and that's like a nightmare, that's like pulling teeth. And we have just really had to shift our mindset here. And I've sort of loved that element of it because I've always been super passionate about families and I feel very fulfilled working towards having those relationships. But it's been a challenge because we're also really used to just working directly with students. And so it's really playing on what our interpersonal skills are and, how we manage difficult situations, just like it is for many, many teachers. But I've also said that we've had to turn into advocates more than ever before as early childhood educators. Not everybody understands what's developmentally appropriate for a 4-year-old. Even people who work in the higher ups at my district and other districts, they're just not aware. The community's overall expectation of what a 4-year-old can do and should be doing during the day is really skewed because nobody has a handbook on this, right? It's just like, well, either you let them play or you make them do what all the older kids are doing. And so I think that we've definitely had to take on the role of advocate for our students so that people understand what is best for them during this time.
Yeah. And so you're in Kansas. Are you full remote learning? Are you part in person? What does your model of education look like there at this point in the pandemic?
A lot of our places in rural towns like me are in person. Our preschool goes 1 day a week remote. So we're kind of in a hybrid schedule just because of all the extra cleaning and all the extra responsibilities when you have 2 half-day classes versus one classroom sharing everything. And everywhere else around us is fully in person, but some of the bigger cities about an hour to 3 hours away are fully remote or in a hybrid situation.
hmm So when you had that time where kids weren't able to be in contact with each
Mhm.
other at all, and everything was remote, did you feel that students and the nurse? I mean, you're located in a nursing home facility, and so they are not getting that one-on-one contact. And I know with the little ones, the 4-year-olds, that is what a lot of that is. There is a lot of physical, you know, role playing and learning through play
Mhm.
and learning how to make friends and a lot of hugs and all of these things. How difficult do you think that was on the children and the nursing home residents when that just had to come to a stop?
It's very hard. We went home. It was the week before spring break. We had that Friday off, but Thursday we went home. We thought we were going to come back in a week.
Mhm.
And then we just never came back at all. And we haven't been back since then at the nursing home. And it was really hard. But we're so fortunate that in the spring, we already had a relationship. And so the spring, I think, was even easier than the fall because people knew their kids already. It was easier to maintain a relationship than it was to curate one from behind a screen. And we stayed connected through Zoom calls with the nursing home, decorating the outside of their windows with chalk paint. We sent pictures of the kids holding up signs that say, I love you, I miss you. We created murals inside of the nursing home in relationship with the staff there. We did a lot of things to make sure that we were still connected. But for sure, it has tugged on that loneliness of some of the residents and to just be ripped off, like a band-aid. Like you I think until you see it, you really can't imagine how much joy and purpose it has brought to the lives of the residents there. And my students, they miss the grandmas and grandpas too. Parents still report to me that they're talking about them and how much they miss them. And so we found some ways for them to stay connected, but it was really difficult. As any relationship that is worthwhile is. It was hard to say goodbye, and it was a loss to not be together.
Mhm. Do you think that it's been better for you, or so you were named National Teacher of the Year during a
Mhm,
pandemic.
mhm.
So that doesn't look, I'm assuming that does not look like other years of National Teacher of the
No,
Year
not at all.
because have restrictions now.
Mhm.
Um, and so do you feel um, sort of like you were given an opportunity to sort of shine in a pandemic and show other people like, this is going to be okay. You're sort of a beacon of encouragement or light. Or do you sometimes feel like the little twinge of, oh, I'm so grateful that I have this title, but man, I kind of wish that it would have just been in a normal year so I could have experienced all of the things that other national
Mhm.
teachers of the year could experience.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. You hit the nail on the head. Yeah.
Mhm.
I am a positive person, and through this pandemic, it's been difficult for even me, who my husband calls like an eternal optimist, to stay positive, just because of what we've been cut off from in our relationship with other people. And I have some, resentment towards the world at large
Right.
that I'm not able to experience this. And, I get emotional thinking about how this is the biggest opportunity I will ever have and the platform to advocate, as of yet in my life. I can't imagine it getting much bigger than this, and it feels limited. But I'm really thankful that CCSSO, who sponsors the program, just they are pulling out all the stops to make sure that I'm still getting the opportunities to communicate with people in a virtual way, and local opportunities they're in person, and they're making sure that anything I take that's in person has very rigid safety precautions in place. I mean, I feel very taken care of and very loved, and people, they don't shy away from speaking to the loss of that. They say, like, I know this isn't what you hoped for, but I honestly do feel like that optimism that I carry was maybe meant for this moment. And sometimes I'm like, great, why do I have to be the person to take the high road, right? Like, what does that mean? But I also feel like, yeah, maybe there is a reason that this is the year that I was chosen. I didn't have any control over it. There was no orchestration at all on my part with how this went down. It was just showing up and doing my job, doing the best I knew how. And I feel like I'm fulfilling that purpose in being able to reach people, and sometimes more people, because it's digital and virtual. Things have been opened up to more people than maybe could have attended big events in the past. And so I feel really fortunate that I'm still able to do that.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you might, you could kind of think of it too as you might have some bragging rights, right? So like in 10 years, when you're sitting around with all the other National Teachers of the Year and they're talking about their year, you could say, well, I was the Teacher of the Year during the pandemic.
Right.
So my stories are going to be better than your stories. So, but, I think that you do have a good point. And I do think that you were probably chosen. And when I say chosen, I mean, I think it was a good fit because of your personality, because of that eternal optimism that you have. And I mean, let me tell you, Tabatha, and I know that you've seen this across the nation, we need that right now. And it just when you think it should be getting better. And I'm speaking from someone that's been both in public education and a homeschooling environment with 3 children that have somewhat of a sense of what I'm doing. And there's been times where I've been frustrated and resentful towards the pandemic. And, just think of all the countless students that have missed their college graduations or their high school graduations and all these huge, important milestones. And so I love the fact that you are just staying positive and you're remaining sort of that piece of encouragement that we all need, because, we all have the same goal, and that's to see our children grow and be healthy and happy and successful, whatever that looks like for each individual child. And so, again, just so appreciative to what you're doing and the message that you're sending out to everyone right now. It's really just an amazing thing. So we really appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm glad to do it. It is it's a weird time, and I totally identify with what you're saying too. And I just want to say that you as a parent too have been faced with your world being flipped upside down. And I think that my message for educators would be to have some grace for that. Maybe those who aren't parents or whose kids are way older, and so it's not as huge of an issue. Parents are really doing the best that they can too. And we have to remember that this wasn't just a change for us. It was a change for our entire community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And don't you really think, I've had a lot of people on the podcast during the pandemic, and we've all talked about, I really truly believe that every group that we talk about, whether it's parents or special education teachers or early education teachers or kids, we are all just trying to do the best that we know how. And the ability to sort of build each other up and listen and communicate and, like you said, have some patience and grace. I really, truly do think that we're all just doing the best that we can with what we've been given.
Oh my gosh. Yes, we are. And I think that that's where it comes to like having this positive intent, right? I'm a huge fan of conscious discipline, which was created by Dr. Becky Bailey. And, whoever wants to can read more about that if they've never heard of it. But one huge component of her research as an educator is having positive intent, right? For other people, even when it's really hard, to just assume the best about them. And I think we can be realistic and still assume the best about people.
Yeah. Well, Tabatha, thank you so much. And once again, congratulations on being named the National Teacher of the Year this year. I know that we are going to see nothing but great things from you. So thank you so much for coming on the Classroom Matters podcast today.
Thank you for having me.
And this is your host, Christy Houle, signing out, and we will see you next time.